Hello and welcome to another Lamp Bible Study. My name is James, your host and Bible reader for Lamp Bible Study. So glad that you can join today once again. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. For today, let's see here. It's been a okay day. I am well, and it's been an okay day. And I pray and hope that your day has been great and okay as well, or even better. And if not, welcome to another Lamp Bible Study. We made it. Lamp Bible Study is always exciting for me to do. And so I pray that we continue to seek the Lord's wisdom together and through His holy word, of course. And we are currently in First Chronicles, so we'll be picking up back in First Chronicles chapter 21 today. And I'm reading from an NIV Collegian Bible. I'll be reading from the different versions throughout different versions of the Bible throughout this time, throughout the Bible studies. But right now, just currently on the NIV Collegiate. And so let's get started with today's Lamp Bible Study with First Chronicles chapter 21. David numbers the fighting men. Satan rose up against Israel and incited David to take a census of Israel. So David said to Joab and the commanders of the troops, "Go and count the Israelites from Beersheba to Dan. Then report back to me so that I may know how many there are." But Joab replied, "May the Lord multiply his troops 100 times over. My lord the king, are they not all my lord's subjects? Why does my lord want to do this? Why should he bring guilt on Israel?" The king's word, however, overruled Joab. So Joab left and went throughout Israel and then came back to Jerusalem. Joab reported the number of the fighting men to David. In all Israel, there were 1,100,000 men who could handle a sword, including 470,000 in Judah. But Joab did not include Levi and Benjamin in the numbering because the king's command was repulsive to him. This command was also evil in the sight of God, so he punished Israel. Okay, so where we were was that, remember, David had been put in charge of Israel after Saul, because Saul had passed away. And so the people came and were rejoicing, and David also was having being able to defeat all the enemies, all the people around Israel, and help protect Israel, as well as have plenty of victories. He also was able to bring the Ark of the Covenant, which is with that holds the law, and to the city of David, Jerusalem. But first he had to remember the instructions. He had to do it correctly. And remember, instructions are important too. And the Lord left us with a whole book of instructions called the Bible. And so I know a lot of us, when we get things, and then we talked about this in the previous Bible study, we get things and we don't read the instructions, right? We think we know what to do, and that's not so much the case. And especially in life, and especially in righteousness and victory with the Lord, with Jesus. And so the Lord provided us with an instruction book. And so after that, though, David had the Lord's help wherever he went. He was able to rout and defeat all of Israel's enemies, and he relied on the Lord. However, he is human, and thus, when the devil to temptation, and it starts right off telling us, Satan rose up against Israel and incited David to take a census of Israel. So what happens is David was doing all this good. He loves the Lord. He's worshiped the Lord, and we'll see just how beautiful. Because I was reading the book of Psalms earlier today, and I was just taking note of just how beautiful. If you really want to know worshiping with your heart, your soul, your mind, your whole body, what that looks like, what that feels like, what that is, go into the book of Psalms, and we're going to get there too, right? So taking each book at a time. But it's However, David's human. And unlike Jesus, who was human too, but it was God's son, who was perfect and sinless, man, we when we get tempted, sometimes we're able to fight off temptation with the Lord's help, of course. But other times, if we don't seek the Lord and we just kind of want to try to do things on our own, doesn't turn out right. In fact, as you can see, David thought of this, and it was given to him by the devil. Hey, count the people, take a census, see how many people, see how rich and wealthy you are. When it was not necessary, it was not needed, because David had full faith and full reliance on the Lord, right? But he also wanted to see how many people he had, because, at any time something could happen, right? That's not fully relying on the Lord. There's all kinds of things that you can take from this. These are sermons upon sermons on sermons, especially the fact that David was tempted. He was tempted and he failed the temptation. He gave in. That's the easy thing to do in life for us. That is the easy thing to do. Think about it. Through all of our lives, through all kinds of stuff, it is when people think about and talk about, oh, life's so hard and everything, and what we do continually is hit that easy button. We always hit that easy button because it feels like we're getting some type of quick relief. We're getting some type of relievance. We're some type of something that's helping us, when that's not the case. May not necessarily be the case. Life is not going to always be easy, nor is it something that we can just forcefully make it so. And so we need to take a moment to bring it to the Lord, bring the Lord in our choices and in all aspects of our life, and think about it that way. And that will help prevent us from losing in those battles of temptation, in those battles with the devil. It just starts off with a bang, boom. Here's David, he loves the Lord, he worships the Lord, he's very passionate, and yet, boom, right here, Satan rose up against Israel and incited David. David took the bait. And so there's going to be consequence to this, of course, because like a good parent, like a good shepherd, there's discipline. The Lord is right and just for discipline. So, but we'll get to that. But there's a lot here. So reading over this first part, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? And what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Then David said to God, I have sinned greatly by doing this. Now I beg you, take away the guilt of your servant. I have done a very foolish thing. The Lord said to Gad, David's seer, go and tell David, this is what the Lord says. I am giving you 3 options. Choose one of them for me to carry out against you. So Gad went to David and said to him, this is what the Lord says. Take your choice. 3 years of famine, 3 months of being swept away before your enemies with their swords overtaking you, or 3 days of the sword of the Lord, days of plague in the land with the angel of the Lord ravaging every part of Israel. Now then, decide how I should answer the one who sent me. David said to Gad, I am in deep distress. Let me fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is very great, but do not let me fall into the hands of men. So right here, I know a lot of people, a lot of preachers and priests believe like he didn't. Some people believe he didn't give an answer. Some people believe he did give an answer to this. by saying, he was falling into the Lord's hands, allowing the Lord to decide or be or be merciful by potentially no type of discipline, right? To me, he kind of, and whenever I read this, I get like, it was almost like he was okay with the first or the third choice. Not okay. he didn't want to be swept away before his enemies. He didn't want more war and battles, especially to be defeated over and over again for 3 months. So it was, to me, when I read this, I always think it was more of that, even though he also was throwing himself at the mercy of the Lord, meaning that there was a potential for no discipline at all. So that's what I get. But bringing this past to present, can things still happen today in similar situations? Have they? Think about it in your life too. If you've been tempted and you fell through, you took the bait, things may not happen the way that they should. Now, I'm not quite sure if you're given a choice as to what kind of reaction or actions are going to take place or consequences take place. It's not like when you get pulled over, the police officer is saying, okay, you have a choice of going to jail for 3 days, getting a $3,000 ticket, or or me roughing you up a little bit for 3 minutes with the baton. Choose. It's not one of those, right? Or if you're in the courtroom, you don't get a choice necessarily. You almost want, you see them, they throw themselves to the court, whoever's giving the verdict and whoever's providing, if there is going to be a disciplinary action, there's, the mercy of the court. Stuff like that, can still definitely happen today in different ways. And maybe it happens similar, like not, I don't know. I mean, it could happen. I'm not saying it can, I'm saying it's a possibility, but in our lives, how we can look at it is just something similar, like I mentioned, like the funny thing about the cop, or the, being in front of a judge or something, or just, a teacher, or anybody of authority, ask you, okay, how do you want to be disciplined? Parents, I've heard it from friends and peers and such, when kids were young, or when they were young, parents gave them a choice. Okay, you can get time out for 10 minutes, you can be grounded for, however long, or you can, 3 of your toys can be taken away, or something like that, So there are similarities that we can take and grasp into our lives in present day. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? I'm trying out these new covers. I don't know. I'm hoping I don't sound muffled. It's supposed to clear things up, but hopefully it's recording sound right now. Let's continue to read. So the Lord sent a plague on Israel, and 70,000 men of Israel fell dead. And God sent an angel to destroy Jerusalem. But as the angel was doing so, the Lord saw it and was grieved because of the calamity, and said to the angel who was destroying the people, enough, withdraw your hand. The angel of the Lord was then standing at the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David looked up and saw the angel of the Lord standing between heaven and earth, with a drawn sword in his hand, extending over Jerusalem. Then David and the elders, clothed in sackcloth, fell face down. Now, take take note, because this is a huge thing when it comes to um, talking about angels, right? This is huge, okay? So we know that there's angels in the Bible. We know that there's angels here. So it's describing the angel as the angel has its sword drawn. So whenever we hear about an angel, or particularly in the Bible, sword drawn means that there is some type of something happening, some war, some type of battle, some type of war, some type of battle, disciplinary or judgment. This is like one of those religious things that is talked about with priests and bishops and pastors and theological Christianity studies and such, is about the description of angels, including up to what exactly they're doing, or how they are presented. And so in a case of, the angel of the Lord was standing and was had its sword drawn. Sent angel to destroy Jerusalem, but as the angel was doing so, the Lord saw it and was grieved because of the calamity. And so, and then David looked, and he saw the angel he was standing between heaven and earth with a drawn sword in his hand, extended over Jerusalem. So that is also so. People also think, I've heard this talked about when people see or have it in dreams or visions and stuff. People tend to believe there's some type of discipline or judgment or something like of that nature going on, or in vision of an angel with its sword drawn. There's a lot to it. I think that leaving it to the Lord, and the Lord telling us if that's a meaning, if there is actually some type of meaning behind it, specifically when it comes to, especially if an angel has its sword drawn, because sometimes we get into these things, and we'll go into the book of Job too, because it talks about that. Job talks about that in the New Testament as well, where people not necessarily it's kind of like they overthink things. Like we try to understand it so much that we create more of something than just of just what it's saying. For that specific time, for that specific reason. However, there's a lot of thoughts and feelings just behind this portion, something like this, when a vision or something of an angel, especially with its sword drawn, because that means a battle. That means something's going on. You don't typically hear or read about an angel have its sword drawn and nothing is going on. Not a salute or anything. So that's why people get that. So that's a good question for you and I. Like, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? Reading over this, reading through it, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? And what does it make you think? And take time, take a moment, maybe do some study on it if you want to have additional time. Just that about visions of angel, in particular with its sword drawn. Because that is something, and it's to take note of too, because it's even when what's his name? Is it during the Balaam Balak please correct me if I'm wrong, but the donkey saw the angel, and I believe the angel had its sword drawn. or and so he didn't want to move, it was a lady donkey, right? And she didn't want to move. She was like, I'm not about to go over there where I could get killed. So there might be something to it. I'm not sure. I would say pray about it, right? Again, not going to leave it there. Like, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Okay. David said to God, was it not I who ordered the fighting men to be counted? I am the one who has sinned and done wrong. These are but sheep. What have they done? O Lord my God, let your hand fall upon me and my family, but do not let this plague remain on your people. Another pause. So when it comes to a lot of times, and even during Israel's time and past and present, and even in the family of God and such, when one is disciplined, they may be all disciplined at the same time. And that happened. That has happened even in the past before David. That happened with Moses. Like, the people did wrong, and although all of them were disciplined, one person took spoils that were supposed to be all given to the Lord, and so all the tribes were being disciplined and punished, or disciplined for it. And so they had to figure out what was going on, and then when they found it out, they were able to take care of it to stop the plague or whatever it was going on. So think about that. We're all brothers and sisters in Christ. We all, when one person's in pain, we should come together and understand that, and we should comfort that person and pray with that person, pray for that person, and pray with them, and remind them, and be a reminder of the love of the Lord, and provide that love to them. And so there's a lot here, and this might go well over today. So what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think? Let me check something real quick. Okay, so let's continue to read. Okay. Then the angel of the Lord ordered Gad to tell David to go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David went up in obedience to the word that Gad had spoken in the name of the Lord. While Araunah was threshing wheat, he turned and saw the angel. His 4 sons who were with him hid themselves. Then David approached, and when Araunah looked and saw him, he left the threshing floor and bowed down before David with his face to the ground. David said to him, "Let me have the site of your threshing floor so I can build an altar to the Lord, that the plague on the people may be stopped. Sell it to me at the full price." Araunah said to David, "Take it. Let my lord the king do whatever pleases him. Look, I will give the oxen for the burnt offerings, the threshing sledges for the wood, and the wheat of the grain offering. I will give all of this." Now, it comes to mind. Was Araunah doing this because he saw these angels standing there? How would you feel? Okay, it says at the beginning, while Araunah was threshing wheat, he turned and saw the angel. His 4 sons who were with him hid themselves. And here comes David running in, and he's like, I need to build an altar here. What would you do? If David comes in, bring yourself into that situation, what would you do? How would you feel? Because you love the Lord too, right? You're part of Israel. You love the Lord. I mean, you turn around and you see this angel, and then here comes David running. Think about that. past to present. Does stuff like that happen today? I believe so. I believe so. I believe when people cry out, and the Lord can definitely may send an angel to help out the situation. Time and time again, the Lord's blessings. I'm a witness right here. Lord's blessings. Okay, and they may happen today. Pray and have faith. Have faith and be strengthened by the Lord. Think about those things in our life. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Araunah said to David, "Take it, let my lord..." Okay, yeah, I will give it. But King David replied to Araunah, "No, I insist on paying the full price. I will not take for the Lord what is yours, or sacrifice a burnt offering that cost me nothing." So David paid Araunah 600 shekels of gold for the site. David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. He called on the Lord, and the Lord answered him with fire from heaven on the altar of burnt offering. Then the Lord spoke to the angel, and he put his sword back into its sheath. At this time, when David saw that the Lord had answered him on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite, he offered sacrifices there. The tabernacle of the Lord, which Moses had made in the desert, and the altar of burnt offering were at that time on the high place at Gibeon. But David could not go before it to inquire of God, because he was afraid of the sword of the angel of the Lord. Again and again. And okay, another thing about the angels sword and angel, the fiery sword that protects Eden, the garden of Eden. Think about that. So that's why you hear that. But I would say, pray about those things. Pray about those things and give those things to the Lord, because He will reveal. He will reveal. And so, David was like, I am too scared to go into there. There's an angel standing there, and he has a sword. Now it's in his sheath. It's God talked to the angel, the sword, and the angel put his sword back into its sheath. They was like, I worship the Lord out here. I don't want to go in there. Yeah. That's a real feeling. That's a really humanistic feeling. Mortality. I love the Lord. I know He loves me, and I don't want to go in there right now. Yeah. Again, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Then David said, "The house of the Lord God is to be here, and also the altar of burnt offering for Israel." Amen, right? Think about those things. Let's continue to read. Preparation for the temple. So David gave orders to assemble the aliens living in Israel, and from among them he appointed stone cutters to prepare dressed stone for building the house of God. He provided a large amount of iron to make nails for the doors of the gateways and for the fittings, and more bronze than could be weighed. He also provided more cedar logs than could be counted, for the Sidonians and Tyrians had brought large numbers of them to David. David said, "My son Solomon is young and inexperienced, and the house to be built for the Lord should be of great magnificence and fame and splendor in the sight of all the nations. Therefore, I will make preparations for it." So David made extensive preparations before his death. Now, remember back in Kings, it was kind of like Absalom. It was like King David was ruling, then it went into his children, and immediately went to Absalom. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And how Absalom wanted to rule and try to kill his own father and all that stuff. And then how the next or the next son wanted to be ruling and such, but it had already been decided that Solomon was going to. So now we know that, and how we know that is from Chronicles. So Chronicles telling us from early on when Solomon was born, my son Solomon is young and inexperienced, and so we know that David had already slept, because it kind of was like you had one son try to rule, another son try to rule, and then King David was on his deathbed, and one of his sons was basically celebrating that he was the king, even though he wasn't, or he hadn't been, selected. And so that's when Bathsheba took action and everything. But it was almost like we didn't know until that portion. Well, actually, from early on, according to Chronicles, now we know. So that's one of those tidbits that we didn't have in the previous books. Now we do, and that's happens in the Bible, throughout the Bible, especially in the New Testament, especially when we're going to have four people that were with Jesus given each an account, each person's account. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, are going to give their own account of what went on while they were with Jesus, right? So there's little details here and there. The one whom Jesus loved. I love that. Anyways, let's continue to read. David said, said that Solomon, Then he called for his son Solomon and charged him to build a house for the Lord, the God of Israel. David said to Solomon, my son, I had it in my heart to build a house for the name of the Lord, my God. But this word of the Lord came to me. You have shed much blood and have fought many wars. You are not to build a house for my name, because you have shed much blood on the earth in my sight. But you will have a son who will be a man of peace and rest, and I will give him rest from all his enemies on every side. His name will be Solomon, and I will grant Israel peace and quiet during his reign. He is the one who will build a house for my name. He will be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. So now we know. That's beautiful, right? That was told to David. Now, my son, the Lord be with you, and may you have success and build the house of the Lord your God, as he said you would. May the Lord give you discretion and understanding when he puts you in command over Israel, so that you may keep the law of the Lord your God. Then you will have success if you are careful to observe the decrees and laws that the Lord gave Moses for Israel. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged. I told you, do not be afraid. The Lord has to tell us over and over again, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Trust in me. Have faith. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. He made thunderings, lightnings, fire, flashes, all that stuff. He comes and he says, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. He knows how to talk to us. We think that he's going to just blow our minds. Sometimes, he can. He is God. He can do it okay. But no, he loves us. He loves us so much that he knows how to talk to us. He's like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. And so it just, it's soft and gentle. Just read it that way. Do not be afraid. Even if you put a little whisper in it. But this part, now my son, the Lord be with you, and may you have success and build the house of the Lord your God. So we'll talk more about that too, because take note of that, because the Lord wants us to have peace and success, right? The Lord does. And also, we'll also talk about how that we also in terms in other areas, especially in the Bible, it can also relate to us. Our bodies too, right? Think about those things. And we'll get to more understanding under that meaning later on. So in other Bible studies. But what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. I have taken great pains to provide for the temple of the Lord 100,000 talents of gold, 1,000,000 talents of silver, quantities of bronze and iron too great to be weighed, and wood and stone. And you may add to them. You have many workmen, stone cutters, masons, and carpenters, as well as men skilled in every kind of work, in gold and silver, bronze and iron, craftsmen beyond number. Now begin the work, and the Lord be with you. Then David ordered all the leaders of Israel to help his son Solomon. He said to them, "Is not the Lord your God with you? And has he not granted you rest on every side? For he has handed the inhabitants of the land over to me, and the land is subject to the Lord and to his people. Now devote your heart and soul to seeking the Lord your God. Begin to build the sanctuary of the Lord God, so that you may bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord and the sacred articles belonging to God into the temple that will be built for the name of the Lord." Because remember, even at this time, they still had the tent tabernacle that it was no longer moving, but the Lord didn't have his own temple. David wanted to build a permanent temple, but the Lord said no, or he wasn't going to build it, that Solomon was going to build it, so let it be done. And so it was. Reading over this, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The Levites. When David was old and full of years, he made his son Solomon king over Israel. He also gathered together all the leaders of Israel, as well as the priests and Levites. The Levites 30 years old or more were counted, and the total number of men was 38,000. David said, "Of these, 24,000 are to supervise the work of the temple of the Lord, and 6,000 are to be officials and judges. 4,000 are to be gatekeepers, and 4,000 are to praise the Lord with the musical instruments. I have provided for that purpose." David divided the Levites into groups corresponding to the sons of Levi: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Now it's Gershonites, so it's going to talk about the different groups within the Levites. So the Gershonites. Belonging to the Gershonites, Ladan, Shimi, the sons of Ladan, Jehiel the first, Zetham, and Joel, 3 in all. The sons of Shimi, Shelomoth, Haziel, and Haran, 3 in all. These were the heads of the families of Ladan. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of names again. Forewarned. If you do know how to correctly pronounce them, say them correctly with us. If you do know how to type them in the comments, you know how to pronounce them by typing them in the comments, please do so, and I thank you. And the sons of Shimi: Jahath, Ziza, Jewish, and Beriah. These were the sons of Shimi, 4 in all. Jahath was the first and Ziza the second, but Jewish and Beriah did not have many sons, so they were counted as one family with one assignment. Kohathites, the sons of Kohath: Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel, 4 in all. The sons of Amram: Aaron and Moses. Aaron was set apart, he and his descendants forever, to consecrate the most holy things, to offer sacrifices before the Lord, to minister before him, and to pronounce blessings in his name forever. The sons of Moses, the man of God, were counted as part of the tribe of Levi. The sons of Moses: Gershom and Eleazar. The descendants of Gershom: Shabeal was the first. The descendants of Eleazar: Rehabiah was the first. Eleazar had no other sons, but the son of Rehabiah were very numerous. The sons of Rehabiah were very numerous. The sons of Izhar: Shelemith was the first. The sons of Hebron: Jeri the first, Amariah the second, Jehaziel the third, and Jechamim the fourth. The sons of Uzziel: Micah the first, and Isahiah the second. Merarites. The sons of Merari: Mahali and Mushi. The sons of Mahali: Eleazar and Kish. Eleazar died without having sons. He had only daughters. Their cousins, the sons of Kish, married them. The sons of Mushi: Mahali, Adar, and Jeremoth, 3 in all. These were the descendants of Levi by their families. The heads of the families the heads of families as they were registered under their names and counted individually. That is, the workers 20 years old or more who served in the temple of the Lord. For David had said, since the Lord, the God of Israel, has granted rest to his people and has come to dwell in Jerusalem forever, the Levites no longer need to carry the tabernacle or any of the articles used in its service. According to the last instructions of David, the Levites were counted from those 20 years old or more. The duty of the Levites was to help Aaron's descendants in the service of the temple of the Lord, to be in charge of the courtyards, the side rooms, the purification of all sacred things, and the performance of other duties at the house of God. They were in charge of the bread set out on the table, the flour from the grain offerings, the unleavened wafers, the baking and the mixing, and all measurements of quantity and size. They were also to stand every morning to thank and praise the Lord. They were to do the same in the evening and whenever burnt offerings were presented to the Lord on Sabbaths and at new moon festivals and at appointed feasts. They were to serve before the Lord regularly in the proper number and in the way prescribed for them. And so the Levites carried out their responsibilities for the tent of meeting, for the holy place, and under their brothers, the descendants of Aaron, for the service of the temple of the Lord. And so this just talked about the Levites and the three different groups that were of the Levites and what their specific duties were. So it's important. It's very important when we have tasks, whether at work, school, church, wherever that may be, to be able to know who is doing what task, or to present a list of tasks and then put person next to each task, right? Or a group of people next to each task. Think about those things. We use those things even today when we bring past to present, and it helps things to function properly. It helps everyone doing their part to help the task, makes everything as a whole function appropriately. Think about that. And how aligned things are when things fall into place correctly. Think about that in our lives too, the function of our lives. Because we'll get to Ecclesiastes, man. Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. That's some heavy stuff we're going to get into. So, over our lives, right? Think about it. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The divisions of priests. These were the divisions of the sons of Aaron. The sons of Aaron were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. But Nadab and Abihu died before their father did, and they had no sons. Remember why? Remember why they passed? This is the sons of Aaron. So the first two, but Nadab and Abihu died before their father did, and they had no sons. Do you remember why? Let's review. Remember this First Chronicles. What happened? What happened? What happened to these sons? Something about presenting some type of offering that they shouldn't have. They were like, oh, let's show off before the Lord. The Lord's doing all these miracle things and sending fire down and taking these burnt offerings and such. We're going to do this offering before the Lord. They showed pride and arrogance and all of it. And so it wasn't praising the Lord. They were showing off for themselves. It was for themselves. It was glorify themselves. So they ended up passing away. And Aaron saw it happen. He saw it happen. And he knew it was wrong, right? So there was a lack of discipline somewhere. There was a lack somewhere. And this is one of those things, it's a tough subject because this involves us, you bring past present. It involves parents. It involves people who look after other people who, may hold some type of responsibility. There are consequences when instructions aren't read, when discipline isn't, done. Things can happen. And so Aaron saw it, but he couldn't mourn at the time because it was a time of rejoicing. It was a time of consecration. They were needing to be consecrated to be able to provide the offerings and such to the Lord, the most holy place. So, and they were dedicated to the Lord. So Nadab and Abihu did not follow directions. They were trying to glorify themselves, and they ended up passing away before their dad. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? This is like sermons. This is heavy information. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. So Eleazar and Ithamar served as the priests. With the help of Zadok, a descendant of Eleazar, and Ahimelech, a descendant of Ithamar, David separated them into divisions for their appointed order of ministering. A larger number of leaders were found among Eleazar's descendants than among Ithamar's, and they were divided accordingly. 16 heads of families from Eleazar's descendants and 8 heads of families from Ithamar's descendants. They divided them impartially by drawing lots, for there were officials of the sanctuary and officials of God among the descendants of both Eleazar and Ithamar. The scribe Shemaiah, son of Nathaniel, a Levite, recorded their names in the presence of the king and of the officials. Zadok the priest, Ahimelech son of Abiathar, and the heads of the families of the priests and of the Levites, one family being taken from Eleazar, and then one from Ithamar. Here we go, lots of names. The first lot fell to Jehoiarib, the second to Jediah, the third to Harim, the fourth to Seorim, the fifth to Malchijah, the sixth to Majamim, the seventh to Hakaz, the eighth to Abijah, the ninth to Jeshua, the 10th to Shechaniah, the 11th to Eliashib, the 12th to Jachim, the 13th to Huppah, the 14th to Jeshabib, the 15th to Bilgah, the 16th to Immer, the 17th to Hizir, the 18th to Hapezes, the 19th to Pethahiah, the 20th to Jehezekel, the 21st to Jachin, the 22nd to Gamul, the 23rd to Deliah, and the 24th to Messiah. All right, made it. This was their appointed order of ministering when they entered the temple of the Lord, according to the regulations prescribed for them by their forefathers Aaron, as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded him. So, again, remember, talk about why the names are listed and such, the importance of the names and such, because they don't have my DNA. What's my DNA back then? 24andMe or whatever. They don't have I know that was wrong, but I'm just saying. They don't have. So it's very important. And up until, while I was alive, yes, they had DNA, but it wasn't common. It wasn't as easy and common as it is now. It was, people wrote family trees. They wrote them down. They had pictures, even if they had picture. Otherwise, it was just a name. Maybe some handwriting from them. I don't know. Think about those things and how each part is important. It's important to know. It can be important, especially for culture. It could be important for each individual person as to how we came about to be, right? Each one of us is important. Think about those things. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The rest of the Levites. As for the rest of the descendants of Levi, from the sons of Amram, Shubiel, from the sons of Shubiel, Jehadiah. As for Rubiah, from his sons, Ashiah was the first. From the Izrahites, Shelomoth, from the sons of Shelomoth, Jahath, the sons of Hebron, Jerah the first, and Mariah the second, Jehaziel the third, and Jachamim the fourth. The son of Aziel, Micah. From the sons of Micah, Shamir, the brother of Micah, Ashiah. From the sons of Ashiah, Zechariah. The sons of Merari, Mahali and Mushi. The sons of Jaziah, Beno. The sons of Merari, from Jazai, Beno, Shoham, Zakur, and Ibri. From Mali, Eleazar, who had no sons. From Kish, the son of Kish, Jeremiel. And the sons of Mushi, Mali, Edar, and Jeremoth. These were the Levites according to their families. They also cast lots, just as their brothers, the descendants of Aaron, did, in the presence of King David and of Zodok, Ahimelech, and the heads of families of the priests and of the Levites. The families of the oldest brother were treated the same as those of the youngest. Well, that's good. So, of course, there was no favoritism. Everyone got lots. It was split up evenly and accordingly. Things that we bring past present. Think about that in our life, splitting things up evenly, allowing things to happen in appropriate manner and appropriate tasks for each person. Think about that. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The singers. David, together with the commanders of the army, set apart some of the sons of Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun for the ministry of prophesying, accompanied by harps, lyres, and cymbals. Here's the list of the men who performed this service. Immediately came to my mind. There's, do you have people in your family that are music that do musical instruments? Do you? I know. I have nieces and nephews that love musical instruments. I know people in my immediate family that play musical instruments and love playing. It's an art. It's also skill. Think about those things and how even those are important. All of that's important, and how each person is creative, and whatever that may be, in regular art, in sports, and any type of particular thing that someone enjoys. And they can be skillful or talented in that. And how important is that? Each and every one of us is different, and each and every one of us is very important. Think about that. And I thought about that immediately. I was thinking, yeah, it's very important. Even in my own family, and my family, as well as the people I know in my family, my nieces and nephews and such, and how they play the instruments and such. So, some of them even self-taught themselves, and they became excellent. Amazing, right? Lord blesses, Lord, and continues to bless. And I know that it's a blessing. And I pray that they know and understand that it's a blessing too. So reading over this first portion, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. From sons of Asaph, Zakur, Joseph, Nethaniah, and Asurilah. The sons of Asaph were under the supervision of Asaph, who prophesied under the king's supervision. Okay, so you're going to hear about Asaph again in Psalms, because he was one of the chief musician people. Let's continue to read. As for Jeduthun, from his sons, Gedaliah, Zerai, Jeshiah, Shimi, Hashabiah, and Metathiah, 6 in all, under the supervision of their father Jeduthun, who prophesied using the harp and thanking and praising the Lord. Yes, and I believe more about, Psalm. Anyways, let's continue. As for Heman, from his sons, Bukiah, Mattaniah, Aziel, Shubi, and Jeremoth, Hanani, Eliatha, Gidalti and Romamti, Romamti Ezer, Josh Bekasha, Malathi Hothir, and Mahazoeth. All these were sons of Heman, the king seer. They were given him through the promises of God to exalt him. God gave Heman 14 sons and 3 daughters. Wow, it's a lot. Big family. All these men were under the supervision of their fathers for the music of the temple of the Lord, with cymbals, lyres, and harps. For the ministry at the house of God, Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman were under the supervision of the king, along with their relatives, all of them trained and skilled in music for the Lord. They numbered 288, young and old alike, teacher as well as student, cast lots for their duties. Do I want to bring this up because it keeps coming up in my mind? About people, families, and family sizes. Okay, so every now and then, especially now I don't hear it as much because of all the things that have happened, including the pandemic, as well as a lot of the deaths and such. But when I was growing up, I was always overhearing things that alarmed me, because I was like, is it from the Lord or is it not from the Lord? And I don't believe it was from the Lord. It was one of those like rhetorical questions. Like, it just didn't seem right. There was a lot of judgment going on with families and their sizes. Like, as in people who had maybe 1 or 2 children, and they were like, that was good. But if you had more than 3, it was like, what are you doing? Why are all you're doing is just producing all these children. And I'm trying to figure it out, because I'm like, one, the children are a blessing. If you choose to, if you're able to have family, if you choose to have family, if that's in your story, if that's in your walk with God, because not everybody, including what we just read, some of these people didn't even have a son or child or anything. They didn't have a son or daughter. They didn't have children, but they were successful. They were successful in their journey, in their walk with the Lord, right? So this, what I'm talking about, is something over here, where it's talking about how people culturally and talk about how actual families and their sizes, how it was just really off-putting and weird when I always heard people would complain, because I'm like, okay, so if we're going off of population increase or population replacement, if there's 2 people that come together and they have 2 people, they're only replacing each other, right? But if they have more than 2, if they have like 3 or more, then that's a +1, +2, +3, +4, right? But no matter what, children are a blessing. So some people would argue, oh, well, it's the cost. It's the cost of the children. Like, have faith. Rely on the Lord. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it, right? There's a lot to it, because in essence, especially when it comes to families and the sizes, is it harder? Is it harder for that family economically wise, right? It could be. Honestly, especially in our society, it could be. However, is it something to talk down about to someone that chooses or has more than 1 or 2 children? Or is it even opposite? If they only choose to have or only have 1 or 2 children, there's a lot of judging going on, and those judgments we're here to love each other, right? We're here to love. And so it's one of those things that whenever I hear about that, or if you were to hear it and stuff, bring it to the Lord, bring love back into it. You know what I mean? Like, pray about it, give it to the Lord, pray with that person about it. what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? Have you heard something like that where you've heard like having one or two is okay, but having three or more than three is you're having a herd or what? It's just it just really always like was, I don't know. It didn't seem correct. And usually, and I would say, I've said this in the past, the Bible says, if something doesn't feel correct, something doesn't seem correct, there's a reason. There's a reason. Bring it to the Lord. There's a reason because the Lord will reveal and provide the answer and provide peace. Think about that. There's a lot there, right? What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Okay, so there's a lot there, so I'm just making sure. Exalt him, God gave him in 14. Okay, all these men were under the supervision of their fathers for the music of the temple of the Lord, with cymbals, lyres, and harps, for the ministry at the house of God. Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman were under the supervision of the king, along with their relatives, all of them trained and skilled in music for the Lord. They numbered 288, young and old alike, teacher as well as student, cast lots for their duties. The first lot, which was for Asaph, fell to Joseph, his sons and relatives. The second, Gedaliah, he and his relatives and sons. The third to Zechur, his sons and relatives. The fourth to Isri, his sons and relatives. The fifth to Nethaniah, his sons and relatives. The sixth to Bechiah, his sons and relatives. The seventh to Jesarela, his sons and relatives. The eighth to Jesiah, his sons and relatives. The ninth to Mattaniah, his sons and relatives. The 10th to Shemiah, his sons and relatives. The 11th to Ezriel, his sons and relatives. The 12th to Hashabiah, his sons and relatives. The 13th to Shubael, his sons and relatives. The 14th to Mattathiah, his sons and relatives. The 15th to Jeremoth, his sons and relatives. The 16th to Hananiah, his sons and relatives. The 17th to Joshbekasha, his sons and relatives. The 18th to Hanani, his sons and relatives. The 19th to Malathi, his sons and relatives. The 20th to Eliathah, his sons and relatives. The 21st to Hothir, his sons and relatives. The 22nd to Gedalti, his sons and relatives. The 23rd to Mahazoith, his sons and relatives. The 24th to Ramapti Izar, his sons and relatives. All right. That's another thing that came to my mind just now. We do have a big family. I'm from a family of more than a few. When parents, right? And then having to name children. And they're like, I've mentioned this before in a previous Bible study. All right, you know who, or they go through the list. Okay, wait, who is it? All right, Jonathan, David, Peter, you know who you are. Get down here. Like somebody's in trouble. That was going through my mind too. All right. Could be challenging to the parents sometimes, right? I think. So knowing this and knowing how these lots fell and their duties and such, worshiping the Lord and bringing past to present, how things like that's important in churches and synagogues and what in places of worship, how things are in line, how in jobs and work and everyday life and tasks and everything, and in society, how there's policemen and firefighters and EMTs and people who work in hospitals and people who are school teachers and people who drive buses, and it all works together. It's supposed to work together to help everybody along, as long as everybody has a task in society as a whole to work together for the betterment of each other, right? That's the idea of it. And the helper is bringing in the Lord to it all. Think about that. Put that in there, right? Bring the Lord into it. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Okay, let's do a quick review. Surprised I thought it was going to take a little bit longer. Okay, David numbers the fighting men. Remember, right off the bat, it's like Satan rose up against Israel, and that can happen. Think about that. draw close, lean in, draw close to the Lord. Devil's out there. He's going to and fro throughout the earth. Or the fallen, his demons, his fallen angels, with the fallen angels. Like, just lean into the Lord. That'll help you avoid that temptation. And if you do fall into temptation, you may be embarrassed, but be humble. Ask the Lord for forgiveness, and because the Lord is merciful and loving and caring and forgiving forever and ever, for eternity. We were also preparations for the temple, how we found out that it was ordained from a while before. It wasn't just at the end, oh, Solomon's going to be king. It was actually known prior to. Now we know that it was known prior to because Chronicles has given that detail to us. Also the Levites and how they were, the Gershonites, the Kohathites, and Merarites, how they have the three different groups within them. The division of the priests, how people were split up to play instruments, to sing, to do all kinds of duties within the temple and such, everything in the worshiping of the Lord, right? Including the singers, which was the last part. So reading over all of today's Lamb Bible study, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? All right. Well, thank you very much once again for joining us in the Leather Lamp Bible Study. We will continue with 1 Chronicles chapter 26 on the next Lamp Bible Study. Continue on and seeking the Lord's wisdom through His holy word. Please continue to pray for me. I will always continue to pray for you. Lamp Bible Study comes out every Tuesdays and Thursdays with highlights throughout the week and flashlights on Fridays. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always leave them in the comments. You can always check out as well the Instagram page. And if you have any comments or additional questions, or if you want to do more with Lamp Bible Study, there is an email contact on the contact page in the YouTube channel. So there was a lot here, a lot to think about and go over, even about the angel. Remember, and about the sword position, whether it's in the sheath or whether it's drawn out and such. There was a lot here. Think about that. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again and in our next Lamp Bible Study. So with that, have a blessed morning, a blessed day, a blessed afternoon, a blessed evening, a blessed night. God bless.